U.S.A. Seattle, the largest city in the northwest of the USA and in the state of Washington, large seaport. The city is the district center of the District King. It is located between the system of the Gulfs Powhatan and the Lake Washington. The first European settlement was founded on the place of Seattle on November 13, 1851 by Arthur Denny's group and was called New York-A. The last approximately was translated from a Chinooksky slang as soon sometime. In 1853, Dr. David Maynard suggested to rename the main settlement into Seattle, in honor of the leader of local tribes Suquamish Duwamish. According to official figures, financial management of the state of Washington, by assessment for October 7, 2018, 730,400 people lived in the city. Seattle is located on an isthmus between the Gulf Puget Sound, the Gulf of the Pacific Ocean, and the Lake Washington. It is the most northern large city in the United States, located approximately in 100 miles, 160 km, to the south from the Canadian border. The ports of Seattle and Tacoma united in Northwest Seaport Alliance, following the results of 2014, took the fourth place among ports in the USA by the number of the accepted commodity containers. Since 1869, an unofficial nickname of the city was the Royal City, more precisely, the City of the Queen, which occurred from the Pacific Queen of the Cities, quite so called Seattle in one Portland real estate agency. However, in 1982, officials of the District King, to which also Seattle belongs, held an official competition on an unofficial nickname. Therefore, the title, Emerald City, was chosen. Other nicknames of Seattle are A Gate to Alaska, the City of Rains, and Jet City, thanks to the Boeing Company. The correct name of residents of Seattle can be translated from English as Seatlita. Seattle is known for many achievements, among which it is possible to allocate the following: the homeland of style grunge, the culture of consumption of coffee. Many American coffee networks were founded in Seattle. The high level of education among inhabitants. More than 51% of the population of Seattle have the higher education. Also such celebrities as Jimi Hendrix, Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Kurt Cobain, Bruce Lee, Mark Arm, Lane Staley, Eddie Vedder, Chris Cornell, Jeremy Innick, Gabe Newell, Jeff Bezos are connected with a name of Seattle. History. Archaeological excavations demonstrate that indigenous Americans inhabited the district of Seattle of at least 400 years. By the time of arrival of the first European settlers, these people, subsequently called the tribe of Duwamish, occupied at least 17 villages in areas around the Gulf Elliot. Lord Vancouver in May 1792 during its expedition of 1791-95 as a part of the Royal Fleet for drawing up the card of the Pacific Northwest was the first European who visited the district of Seattle. Collins's group, which tried to stake out the site at the mouth of the Duwamish River on September 14, 1851, was the first white settlers. However, in spite of the fact that they were the first on the site, scouts of group of Denny could write down the earth on themselves that occurred on September 28, 1851. Due to this circumstance, the head of scouts David Denny sent the message to Portland, where there were other members of the group, in which urged to arrive to the place of the settlement as soon as possible and all together. It occurred on November 15. The group led by Arthur Denny came on the ocean and found sick David and an unfinished wintering. This settlement was called by Alki Point by the local name of the cape. After the first winter noted by frequent heavy rains and strong winds, practically all group of Denny moved on the new place, which was called the Vamps. Or Daiwa Vamps. The settlers who remained on the old place renamed the village into New York Alki. Within several next years 2 villages competed for the place of the main settlement, however eventually won against the Vamps. Since 1853 one of the Vamps' founders, David Maynard, conducted a campaign for the Vamps' renaming into Seattle, in acknowledgement to the leader Seattle, the main supporter of cooperation of the Indian population of the northwest of the USA with white colonists. This campaign yielded the fruits soon enough. In 1855 the settlement was given the status of the city with the name Seattle. The Great Fire of 1889, which destroyed all business center of the city but which did not claim the uniform life. Gold Rush on Alaska, in which Seattle played a role of the important thoroughfare. Alaska Yukon Pacific Expo 1909, Fair of Achievements of the Northwest Pacific Region. The strike of 1919, which covered most labor unions and about 65,000 workers. One of mottos of a strike was, Russia made it, in positive sense, meaning expansion of the rights and freedoms to the working class, revolution and elimination of a capitalist system. World Fair, also known as Expo of the 21st Century, of 1962. Construction of Space Needle was dated for it. Massacre in Underground Game Club, Ashington, Michigan, for the purpose of robbery in 1983. 13 killed and 1 survivor, 2 of murderers are sentenced to life imprisonments, the third to 85 years of imprisonment. Goodwill Games of 1990. APEC Conference of 1993. The Conference of the U.S.A. of 1999, marked by large-scale protests. The race riots, directed generally against the white population. During the Festival of Mardi Gras of 2001, 1 killed and 72 wounded. Since 2012 the Valve company organizes an annual The International Tournament on Dota 2. From June 8 to July 1, 2020 in the territory of the city during anti-racist protests, the Autonomous Zone of Capitol Hill, Chaz, not under control of public authorities, was proclaimed. History of economic development of the city, as well as at the majority of the cities located near extensive stocks of natural resources. In the history of economic development of Seattle, the periods of rise and recession are well noticeable. The boom of logging production in the 1880 years, which proceeded up to the beginning of the 20th century, was the first of similar rises, thanks to which in fact Seattle also began to develop. As well as the most part of the American West, Seattle was the place of emergence of the numerous conflicts between workers and managing directors, and also the ethnic conflicts, the largest of which were anti-Chinese revolts of 1885-86. These acts of violence were initiated by white jobless inhabitants who decided to expel completely representatives of the Chinese nationality from Seattle. Similar revolts also took place in the city of Tacoma. In 1900, representatives of Asian nationalities made 4.2% of the total number of the population. Martial law was declared and federal troops were attracted to suppression of disorders. Despite it, economic progress of the city was so considerable that when heavy fire of 1889 destroyed the central business quarter, On its place new, larger central region was very quickly built. The Washington Mutual Finance Company, for example, was founded right after this fire. This construction rise was followed by creation of the park system developed by the landscape company of Brothers Olmsted. However, the crisis, which received the name Panic of 1893, had significant negative impact on development of the city. Seattle felt the second enthusiasm at the time of the gold rush on Alaska, which began in 1896 and proceeding within about 1.5 decades. Shortly before it, there was a great fire of 1889 when burned out all business center of the city. Therefore, the Washington Mutual Bank, which main objective was an economic stabilization of a situation in the region, was formed. In 1907, the company nowadays known as U.S.A, one of the world's largest companies on transportation and logistics, was founded. At the beginning of the last century, also other large American networks, such as Nordstrom and Eddie Bauer, were founded. In Seattle also there began the activity an impresario Alexander Pantides, who, since 1902, opened a number of movie theaters where showed vaudevilles and silent cinema in the city. Soon business began to prosper and the successful Greek became one of the most outstanding theatrical and film theatrical magnates of America. Thanks to Pantides and his competitor John Considine. For some time Seattle became the main place of a pilgrimage for fans of vaudevilles from all western part of the U.S.A. The local architect of the Scottish origin B. Marcus Prateca constructed for Pantides movie theaters in Seattle and some other American cities. Over time the movie theaters constructed in Seattle were demolished, or they began to use for other designated purpose. But many of movie theaters still exist in other cities of the USA under the name Pantages. The Paramount Theater, which remained in Seattle, on which the architect worked, did not belong to Pantages. The following rise by a boom in the industry of shipbuilding and construction of the real estate was formed a basis. During World War II, Seattle served as the base of departure of troops, and the Boeing Company was the largest producer of bombers for the United States Air Force. Soon upon termination of war, recession in development, which however was marked by new rise, thanks to the same Boeing Company, began. This rise continued up to the end of the 1960th years, when the aircraft manufacturing industry experienced a general crisis. In the 1960th years, the unofficial nickname, Jet City, was appropriated to the city. The headquarters of Boeing was located in Seattle up to 2001, when the company announced the intentions to divide production and the headquarters. Chicago became the new place of the headquarters. The last rise, which it is possible to call a boom of technologies, began in the mid-90s. At the time in Seattle and its vicinities were based or felt enthusiasm set a high-tech, the companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, Real Networks, Macau Cellular. Nowadays a part of AT&T Mobility. VoiceStream. Also in the area a large number of the companies on medical researches, for example, of HeartStream, by Heart Technologies, Physiocontrol, Zymogenetics, ICOS, etc. is concentrated. During the last decade of the 20th century, the population of the city increased by, only at the expense of techno corporations. Apart from natural increase, and real estate prices reached one of the highest levels in the Seattle is between the Pacific Gulf Puget Sound in the west and the Lake Washington in the east. The main port of the city is located on coast of the Bay Elliott relating to Puget Sound. To the west from this gulf there is a peninsula of Kitsap and also the Olympic Mountains on the Peninsula Olympique. To the east of the Lake Washington and the suburb of Seattle there are a Lake Sammamish and the Cascade Range. The area is quite suitable for swimming on sailing yachts, skiing, bicycle walks, camping and long walks on foot, at the disposal of persons interested almost for all year. The city is located on the hilly area, but a landscape not monotonous. They say that Seattle, as well as Rome, is located on 7 hills.
Capitol Hill, First Hill, Western Seattle, Hill Beacon, Hill of the Queen Anna, Hill Magnolia and Hill Denny.
Areas Wallingford and Mont Baker are also located on hills. Hilly areas are located near the downtown. At the same time Capitol Hill, the First Hill and Hill Beacon form something like a ridge along an isthmus between the Gulf Elliott and the Lake Washington. The gap in a ridge between the First Hill and Hill Beacon was done by people. It is result of 2 of numerous projects on change of a landscape of Seattle. The downtown topography was also changed. The dam and an artificial island harbor in the mouth of the Duwamish River was constructed. In a northern part of the downtown the channel of the Lake Washington connects Puget Sound to the Lake Washington. It unites 4 water massifs: Lake Union, Gulf Salmon Bay, Gulf Portage Bay and Bay Union Bay. In Seattle there are earthquakes. On February 28, 2001 there was a strong earthquake measuring 6.8. Some old buildings were damaged, but it was without the human victims. Strong tremors were recorded on January 26, 1700.
Magnitude 9.0.
On December 14, 1872. Magnitude -7.3 or 7. On April 13 on April 1949. 7. 29 1965. 6. Eight people died as a result of an earthquake of 1949. In 1965 3 persons died directly because of an earthquake in Seattle, 1 died from heart attack. In the southern part of the center of Seattle there passes the break, but from the moment of foundation of the city neither it, nor a zone of a subduction Cascadia earthquakes were not the reason. The zone of a subduction Cascadia poses in itself threat of an earthquake measuring 9.0 that can lead to serious destruction of the city. In Seattle soft sea climate. However, there are characteristics of the Mediterranean climate. Winter with the increased humidity and dry summer. Air temperature is not very high or very low thanks to proximity of Puget Sound, the Pacific Ocean and the Lake Washington. The Olympic Mountains partially protect Seattle from gales of the Pacific Ocean, and the Cascade Range constrains cold Arctic air. In spite of the fact that Seattle is in limits of a rain shadow of the Olympic Mountains, it created reputation of the city where often there are rains. This reputation is based on an amount of precipitation, dropping out in the fall, in the winter and in the early spring. On average, more than 0.3 mm of rainfall drop out 150 days in a year. 201 days in a year are observed overcast and 93 more days, partial overcast. the place where registration of weather and climatic conditions is carried out. The International Airport Seattle-Tacoma, located at distance of 19 km to the south from the central part of the city, is. There are more cloudy days and less days with partial overcast are registered. For this reason, official data on climatic conditions not fully display real weather conditions in Seattle. In fact, in the city the smaller amount of precipitation, 944, than in such cities as New York, 1201, Atlanta, 1219, Boston, 1055, Baltimore, 1038, Portland, Man, 1128, Jacksonville, Florida, 1304, and the majority of other cities of the east coast of the USA drops out.
It is unexpected that Seattle was not included in the list from 10 cities with the greatest number of rainfall in a continental part of the USA.
There are some months which have an impact on average annual indicators and also location of the city on east coast of the Gulf that provides loss of a smaller amount of precipitation, in comparison with other cities in the region became the reason for it.
However, the general trend is directed towards increase in an average annual amount of precipitation. At the moment this indicator reached a point of 952.
In November in Seattle, the greatest number of rainfall among all cities of the USA with the population more than inhabitants is registered. On this indicator the city is in the top 10 among such cities and in winter months. However, from June to September Seattle is located in the lower part of this rating. Seattle is in the first 5 of the cities of the USA with the greatest number of rainy days, and is the city receiving the smallest quantity of sunlight among the main cities of the USA. Thunderstorms happen here seldom. According to observations, only about 7 days in a year. For comparison, in the city of Fort Myers, the state of Florida, thunderstorms are registered 93 days in a year. In Kansas City, Missouri, -52 days, and in New York, -25 days. Generally here the small rain drizzles, heavy rains happen seldom. In the spring, late fall and in the winter many days when the rain does not go drop out, but it seems that it can go because the sky is tightened by clouds. The winter cool and damp, at night temperature falls up to 2-4 C. The lowest temperature was registered on January 31, 1950, it was 18 C. Summer in Seattle dry and warm, day about 22.2, 26.7 C. The hottest temperature was registered on June 28, 2021 during record carrying out from tropics. It blocked a former record for about +2.5 and former June more than on +6 and was about 42 C. Heavy rains not so often pass in Seattle, however it is possible to call several exceptions. On December 2-4, 2007 in the region observed strong, a storm-type winds and also considerable rainfall in the form of a rain. Road Interstate 5 got under landslides and was closed for nearly 2 days. Level of rainfall exceeded a mark of 356 m, and the speed of wind reached peak values in 209 km/h in the territory of the coast of the state of Oregon.
This event became the second largest flood in the history of Seattle, during which in 24 hours more than 130 mm of rainfall dropped out. 5 people died and considerable territories were flooded and destroyed. In 80 miles, 130 km,
To the west from Seattle, mountains of Olympic Mountains are located. From west side of mountains there is a territory of Olympic National Park where around Ho rainforest average regulation of annual rainfall makes 142 inches. 361 cs. And in 60 miles to the south from the city in the capital of the state, the city of Olympia, which is outside a zone of a rain shadow, drops out on average 52 inches. 132 cs. In a year. As a rule, in the winter in Seattle snow, but heavy snowfalls, a rarity drops out.
The average annual amount of precipitation in the form of snow makes 21 cs around the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport.
Since 1948 in Seattle there are only 15 days when 15 or more centimeters of snow in one day dropped out, and since February 17, 1990 the only time dropped out on January 18, 2012 17.2 cs of snow around the CTAC airport. This day officially is considered 12 on the account the most snow with 1948 and the most snow since November 1985. In Seattle less snow drops out. To the south from Seattle, in regions of Olympia and Chehalis, from 36 to 46 centimeters of snow in the forenoon drop out. During the period from December 12 to December 25, 2008 owing to snowfalls on roads about 30 cs mashed a snow layer. It became the reason of large-scale difficulties in the movement as in the city there was no enough the snow removal equipment. The day record of the snow which dropped out in Seattle in number of 51 cs is recorded on January 13, 1950. The heaviest snowfall is recorded during the period from January 5 to January 9, 1880 when snow drifts reached 1.8 m in some places. From January 31 to February 2, 1916 one more heavy snowfall took place. The amount of precipitation reached a point of 74 cs, being followed by strong drifts on roads. From May to September the dry sunny weather usually prevails. An average amount of precipitation in July -20 m, in August -25 m. Summer heavy rains a rarity for this region. The atmospheric phenomenon of Puget Sound Convergence Zone is the important characteristic influencing weather conditions Seattle. In a convergence zone the north air flow meets southern. Both streams are formed in the Pacific Ocean and move towards mountains of Olympic Mountains. Mountains divide an airflow in the western part of Seattle, and then it unites in the east again. When airflows meet them again pushes out upward and it leads to convection.
Because of this phenomenon, northern and southern parts of Seattle are characterized by downpours while in the city seldom there are rains, and only sometimes there are thunderstorms to a thunder and a hail. The only exception is the heavy rain of Hanukkah Eve windstorm which passed in December 2006 when there passed the heavy rain with gusty wind up to 111 km/h which caused the phenomenon of Puget Sound Convergence Zone was not.
In the period of the atmospheric phenomenon of El Niño when the warm sea waters which are superficially from a surface are displaced to the south to California, around Puget Sound a small amount of rainfall drops out. During such periods it is hardly possible to call Seattle the damp city. In droughty summer months water supplies come to the region from the mountaintops covered with snow. During a season of El Niño a small amount of snow which insufficient for doing winter sports drops out in the winter. But regulation of water consumption and a lack of the hydroelectric power the next summer can become a bigger problem. Seattle was created as the city after accession to it of nearby settlements, smaller by the size. On May 3, 1891, regions of Magnolia, Wallingford, Green Lake, and University District, known more as Brooklyn, joined the city. On October 20, 1905, the city of South Seattle was attached. From January 7 till September 12, 1907, the territory of Seattle almost doubled due to accession of 6 independent cities and areas which belonged to the District of King County, including Southeast Seattle, Ravenna, South Park, Columbia City, Ballard, and West Seattle.
In 3 years, because of problems with payment of the bill of exchange for $10.00 received from the district, the city of Georgetown became the area of Seattle.
Finally, Seattle was created on January 4, 1954, when the area between streets of N was attached. 85th Street in N.
145th, including nearby territories of Pinehurst, Greenwood, Blue Ridge, Crown Hill, Broadview, Bitter Lake, Holler Lake, Maple Leaf, Lake City, View Ridge, and Northgate.
The former mayor of Seattle, Greg Nichols, one of those people who call Seattle the city of vicinities, though borders, and even names. These vicinities are open for discussion. For example, the representative of the Department of Neighborhoods organization said that the name of the area in which she lives changed from X to Madrona, then to Greater Madison Valley, and finally to Madrona Park. More than 10 districts of Seattle have their own organizations, neighborhood service centers, in 1972 known under the name Little City Halls, and even hold own street fairs and slasher parades within summer months. At the most large-scale street fair of the city, it is possible to get acquainted with hundreds of national crafts, to try food from a set of tents, and also to take part in numerous entertainments under the open sky. In a week, the fair is attended by about 100,000 people. Besides, at least in the Paludiana of areas, the weekly agricultural markets in which about 50 various sellers accommodate function. Besides, Puget Sound Regional Council allocates some districts of Seattle in the so-called city centers, defining them as the designated planned areas which main destination consists in granting conditions for accommodation, work, business, and carrying out rest in the compact forms, providing conditions for transit, the pedestrian and bicycle movement. These centers can be called also as well as areas, but not to coincide on borders. For example, the city center Capitol Hill is much less than all area with the same name. City architecture. The Space Needle was constructed for the World Fair of 1962. This tower is the most recognizable site in the northwest of the Pacific coast of the USA and a symbol of Seattle.
Its image can be found on logos of the former team of League NBA, Seattle Supersonics, and the Seattle Sounders teams of League Mills.
The image of a tower appeared in a television show Frasier, on a background of series The Dark Angel, Anatomy of Passion, The Killing and iCarly, and also in movies It Happened at a World Fair, Not Sleeping Beauties in Seattle, Twilight Saga. The Eclipse, Lyubov Happens, also the plot Parallax, 50 Shades of Grey. The tower is located in the territory of Seattle Center Exhibition Complex, which is the venue of many city and cultural actions, among which there are annual festivals Bumbershoot, Folklife, and Bite of Seattle. The Seattle Center Complex plays an important role in city life, at the same time being both the venue of fairs and festivals and the municipal center. Though recently suffered economic losses called into question its expediency and future existence. The monorail railroad monorail of Seattle was also constructed to the Century 21 exhibition.
On it Casaloni Route Seattle Center Exhibition Complex, the central shopping mall Westlake Center, which is located at distance of 1 mile to the southeast Stillpla.
The skyscraper Smithy Tower was the highest building on all western coast of the USA from the moment of the construction and up to 1962 when the Space Needle was constructed. In 1985 the Columbia Center, 276 floors, this highest building in the Pacific Northwest Shore and the fourth highest building was constructed of those that are located to the west of the Mississippi River. In 1988 Washington Mutual Tower, the second highest skyscraper of Seattle, was constructed. Other significant places of Seattle: a Pike Place Market, and a wall of chewing gum near it. The Fremont Troll, Fremont Troll, the Museum of History of Music and Science Fiction, and the Central Library of Seattle.
The Starbucks coffee shop is in the territory of the Pike Place Market from the date of foundation of the coffee company in 1971.
The first shop works still, though is for a quarter to the south of the initial location. The Starbucks Center, head office of the company, the biggest building of Seattle, its area makes more than Cardam. More than 150 sites of Seattle are entered in the National Register of Historical Places of Shaw. The city also keeps own list of sites. Culture.
From 1869 to 1982 Seattle was known under the nickname Queen City, after carrying out tender in 1981 to this day an official nickname of the city, the Emerald City.
Because it is among dense evergreen forests. Informally Seattle is also called by Gate to Alaska, the City of Rain, and the City of Jet Planes. The last name was directly influenced by the Boeing Company. The region of Seattle is also known under the nickname 206, according to the long-distance telephone city code. Locals are called by Seatleets. Already long time Seattle is considered the regional center of theater.
The Centenary Symphonic Orchestra Seattle Symphony Orchestra is one of the written most known orchestras in the world and generally acts in Benaroya Hall. The troupes Seattle Opera and Pacific Northwest Ballet which give representations in McCaw Hall.
It is opened in 2003 on the place of the former Seattle Opera House in Seattle Center. Are rather famous in the world. The opera is especially known for the statements of works of Richard Wagner and P. Neben School. Formed in 1974. Is included into the 3 of the best ballet schools Shaw. Seattle Youth Symphony Orchestras. SISO, the biggest symphonic youth organization of America. Besides, residents of Seattle are proud of the well-known summer and winter festivals of chamber music as which organizes Seattle Chamber Music Society acts. On a stage of theater, Fifth Avenue Theater constructed in 1926 book musicals in the Broadway style in which both local talents and global stars participate. In Seattle there are about 100 theatrical and production companies and more than 20 theatrical sites, on many of which vanguard and experimental groups act. Perhaps Seattle concedes only to New York by the number of theaters which are included into labor union of actors. 28 theatrical companies of the city have the so-called trade union contract of actors. Besides, in the 900-seater Romanesque revival town hall around First Hill, constantly there take place numerous cultural actions, as especially frequent, lectures and recitals. Seattle is considered the homeland of the musical direction grunge, which in the early 90s became popular around the world thanks to such groups as Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and Mudhoney. The city presented to the world of musicians of various directions, among whom there is Bill Frisell and Wayne Horvitz. Glenn Kreitzer. The rapper Sir Mix-a-Lot, jazz the saxophonist of Kenny G. Hart, a heavy metal of the group Queensryche, Demon Hunter, Metal Church, Nevermore, Himsa, and Sun O. Both pop rock of the group Harvey Danger, Goodness, and the Presidents of the United States of America. The famous musicians of Jimi Hendrix, Duff McKagan, Nicky Sixx and Quincy Jones spent years of the formation in Seattle. Every year the local team of masters of a colloquial genre takes part in the Tender National Poetry Slam. It is possible to distinguish Buddy Wakefield from poets, twice the winner of individual World Poetry Slam champ. Anis Mojani, twice winner of National Poetry Slam champ. And Danny Sherrod, the champion of 2007 in National Poetry Slam champ and 2008 in individual World Poetry Slam champ. In 2001 in Seattle there took place the National Tender Poetry Slam Tournament. At the Seattle Poetry Festival which is taking place each 2 years. For the first time taken place under the name of Poetry Circus in 1997. The poets who received local, regional, national and international recognition take part. In the city there are movie theaters at which show both movies from Hollywood and works of independent film studios. Seattle Cinerama, one of 3 movie theaters in the world which can still show widescreen movies in the Cinerama format. According to 2010, the main daily of Seattle is the Seattle Times newspaper. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer newspaper, famous also as PI, appeared daily from 1863 to March 17, 2009 when it completely transferred option to online. In the city there are Seattle Daily Journal of Commerce and the daily newspaper published by students of the University of Washington during academic year. Significant weekly publications Seattle Weekly and The Stranger position themselves as alternative editions. The weekly street newspaper Real Change is on sale, mainly homeless, as an alternative to begging. In the city it is published several ethnic newspapers, for example Northwest Asian Weekly, and a number of district newspapers among which there is North Seattle Journal. In Seattle the main radio and TV stations of the U.S.A., along with 5 other English language and 2 Spanish language stations function. Inhabitants can watch the cable television broadcast by the CS2 CBC company from Vancouver. According to the Time magazine, local online editions World Changing and Grist.org were among the best websites of ecological subject in the rating of top green websites in 2007. All latest news can be found on internet pages of local media, among which the most known, the Seattle Times and Seattle Post-Intelligencer. Tourism. 886,039 passengers visited Seattle for 2008 by 210 cruise ships. Among annual exhibitions and festivals of Seattle, the 24-day Seattle International Film Festival, the Ethnic Folklore Northwest Folklife Festival, which takes place in Days of Remembrance, the numerous events of Seafair which are taking place within July-August. From the Dancing Bonodori Festival prior to races on Seafair Cup hydroplanes. A culinary debate of Seattle Festival.
One of the biggest parades of sexual minorities in the United States, Gay Pride, and a festival of music and art of Bumbershoot, which is taking place at the beginning of September, which program included both musical competitions and competitions in different types of arts and entertainments are the best known.
As a rule, about card people annually visit each of festivals.
Tourists and the annual Seattle Hemp Fest Festival and two separate celebrations of the Independence Day do not ignore.
In Seattle also there take place the numerous festivities of powwow held by local communities of indigenous Americans, the Greek festival as which organizes street acts. The Metro's Greek Orthodox Church and Montlake ethnic festivals, the majority of which are integrated under the general name Festival and take place in Seattle Center. Residents and tourists attend also other interesting events which take place every year. Exhibition of rare books and publications, Seattle Antiquarian Book Fair and Book Arts Show. Festival of Fans of Anaheim SakuraCon. The exhibition devoted to computer games of Penny Arcade Expo. 2-day Rally of Seattle to Portland Bicycle Classic, in which about 90 bicycle racers, and the specialized film festivals Maelstrom International Fantastic Film Festival, Northwest Asian American Film Festival, Children's Film Festival Seattle, translation take part.
Seattle Transgender Film Festival, Seattle Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, and Seattle Polish Film Festival.
The State of Washington First Public Art Museum Henry Art Gallery opened the doors in 1927. The Art Museum of Seattle was constructed. SAM. In 1933. Later, in 1991, SAM opened doors of the new building in the central part of the city, which was expanded in 2007. And in its former building there are exposures of Division of the Museum of Asian Art of Seattle. SAM. Olympic Sculpture Park. It is open since 2007. Its division of SAM and is in the territory of northern piers of the Central Embankment of Seattle. In the museum, Fry Art Museum on First Hill, an entrance for visitors free. Collections which display the history of the region can be seen in Loghouse Museum in Alki, Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park, Museum of History and Industry, and Burke Museum of Natural History and Culture.
The collections relating to different types of the industry are exposed in Center for Wooden Boats and the Next Northwest Seaport, Seattle Metropolitan Police Museum, and Museum of Flight. The museum's Nordic Heritage Museum, Wingluk Asian Museum, and Northwest African American Museum should be visited because of ethnic regional exhibitions. In Seattle there are also several art galleries, for example, 10-year Soil Art Gallery, and recently opened Crawl Space Gallery. In 1899 in Seattle opened the doors for visitors of Woodland Park Zoo. In the beginning it was the private collection of animals which in the same 1899 was sold to the city. Since 1977 Seattle Aquarium. In 2006 it was reconstructed. Works at the central embankment of the city. And having made a tour on Seattle Underground Tour, you visit places which existed even before heavy fire of 1889. In June 2012, on a pier of the 57th Central Embankment of the city about downtown Seattle, the new attraction of Seattle Great Wheel, one of the biggest big wheels in Shaw, was open.
It is possible to find a large number of the public centers for cultural rest in the city: Rainier Beach, Van Asselt, Rainier and Jefferson to the south from Ship Canal and Green Lake, Laurelhurst, Loyal to the north from Canal and Meadowbrook. From the middle of the 1990th years, the industry of voyages endures significant growth because Seattle is starting point for the passengers going to cruises to Alaska.
In 2008, 886,039 travelers visited the city. That significantly exceeded the number of passengers in other large ports sending tourists to Alaska, Vancouver.
At the beginning of the 20th century in Seattle, development of professional sport began.
There was it in 1917 after pious Seattle Metropolitans became the first American team which won the Stanley Cup.
Now in Seattle there are 3 professional teams acting in the highest leagues. The Seattle Seahawks team in National Football League, Seattle Mariners in Major League Baseball, and Seattle Sounders in Major League Soccer.
In the city, the women's basketball team, Seattle the Storm, which twice in 2004 and in 2010 became the champion of Women's National Basketball Association, is also based. From 1967 to 2008, Seattle was provided to NBA by the Seattle Supersonics team, which in a season of 1978/79 won a champion title.
After a season of 2007/08, the team moved to Oklahoma City and was renamed into Oklahoma City Thunder. In 1969, the honor of the city in Major League Baseball was protected by the Seattle Pilots team. In 1970, the team moved to Milwaukee, where it began to act under the new name, Milwaukee Briars. The Seattle Thunderbirds team is provided in one of the highest junior hockey leagues, all of Canada. During a season 2008/09, team moved to the neighboring city of Kent, the state of Washington. The Seattle Sounders team began to play Major League Soccer since 2009. Since 2021 in Seattle, the team of the National Hockey League, Seattle Kraken, began to act. In Seattle there took place the All-Star Game of LBL twice. In 1979 at Kingdom Stadium and 2001 at Safeco Field Stadium. In the same 2001, the Seattle Mariners team set up a new record, having won 116 games of a regular season. 2 times Seattle hosted All-Star Games of NBA, in 1974 at Seattle Center Coliseum Stadium and in 1987 in the Kingdom Hall. In 2006 in the field of CenturyLink Field, played games of a series of the playoffs of NFL of a season 2005/06. In 2008 in the first game of a series of the playoffs, the local Sycox team of the House crushed Washington Redskins with the score 35-14. The Seattle Sounders Major League Soccer team trains and plays the matches in the field of CenturyLink Field Stadium. Seattle can brag of strong students teams. Among them there are teams of the University of Washington and Seattle University which take part in the INCAW division. Active holiday. The soft sea climate of Seattle allows locals to spend free time in the open air all the year round. The most popular active types of rest are foot walks, driving the bicycle, pedestrian tourism, skiing and a snowboard, kayaks races, mountaineering, powerboat and sailing, swimming and team sports. In the city there is a huge number of beautiful places on which it is possible to make footwalks. The Lake Green Lake, forests, rocks and beaches of the Discovery Park.
The biggest park of the city, which area of the territory is 2.2 km.
Around Magnolia, coast of Myrtle Edwards Park, which is on the central embankment, the coastline of the Lake Washington in Seward Park, Alki Beach in West Seattle and Burt Gilman Trail. Fans of pedestrian tourism and skiing are attracted by mountains of Cascade or Olympic Mountains, and in Puget Sound waters, passages Juan de Fuca and Strait of Georgia, it is possible to organize kayaks races or under sails. In 2005 the Men's Fitness magazine gave to Seattle the rank of the most sports city in U.S.A.
Economy. On an equal basis with curfews of the industry traditional for the region, in Seattle the companies representing its latest industries, the internet and new technologies, the industries of services, design and development of environmentally friendly technologies develop.
In 2010 the gross product of the city made $231 billion, thus Seattle appeared on the 12th place on development of economy among the largest cities in U.S.A.
The Port of Seattle, which port also the Seattle-Tacoma Airport is the main lock for trade with Asia and place of departure of cruises to Alaska, and takes the 8th place among the largest ports of America on tonnage. Despite recent world crisis, Seattle could retain a city position with rather strong economy and remains the place where the new companies, especially in the industry of environmentally friendly construction and technologies, are created. The city was called the most reasonable city of America thanks to urban government policy and development of the environmentally friendly branches of economy.
In February 2010 the city authorities undertook the obligation till 2030 to reduce to zero per capita emission of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and thus to make Seattle the first in North America city which will have a zero balance on emission of greenhouse gases. Nevertheless, in the sphere of business the leading positions are taken by the large companies.
According to the list of Fortune 500 published in 2008, 3 companies which headquarters is in Seattle were included in the list of the largest companies of America according to comprehensive income.
World Retail Network selling coffee in Starbucks coffee shops. And Nordstrom department store.
Other companies entering the list of Fortune 500 which in the people are associated with Seattle or in the neighboring cities of the territory of Puget Sound.
The network of club shops warehouses Costco. The largest company of retail trade in the state of Washington is in the city of U.S.A. The largest organization in a healthcare system and the 5th largest employer, Providence Health and Services, located in the city of Renton. The main offices of the Microsoft company and the American division of Nintendo are in the city of Redmond. The wood processing company Weyerhaeuser was based in the city of Federal Way. And the city of Bellevue is the house for automobile plant on production of the Packard trucks. And also the main office of US T-Mobile, subsidiary company of the international mobile operator T-Mobile. In recent years the city won reputation of the place where consume a significant amount of coffee, thanks to the coffee companies Starbucks, Seattle's Best Coffee and Tully's. In the city there is also a huge number of small traditional the expressive cafe and coffee shops. Boeing Company. No. 27. Was the largest company of the region until its headquarters was not transferred to Chicago. But still the biggest division of the company is in the city of Renton and also in the city of Everett, where the main production capacities are placed. Thus, Boeing remains the largest private employer in the region.
In 1996, the former mayor of Seattle, Greg Nichols, announced desire to cause a new economic boom by means of the biotechnology industry.
Now reconstruction of the region of South Lake Union for the purpose of attraction to the city of new and widely known companies in the sphere of biotechnologies is performed. Such companies as Corixa, purchased by GlaxoSmithKline. Heminex, at the moment enters into structure of Amgen. Vitruvian and Zymogenetics are involved in cooperation. The holding company of the billionaire Paul Allen stands behind all main construction projects in the region. While many considered the new direction in development of the region economic, others criticized Nichols and City Council of Seattle for complicity to Paul Allen's interests at the expense of means of taxpayers. In 2006, the Expansion magazine brought Seattle in 10 the best municipal districts of the country with favorable climate for expansion of business. In 2005, according to the Forbes magazine, Seattle was the most expensive city for purchase of housing of rather local level of income.
The main office of Alaska Airlines is in the city of Sitek, near the airport Seattle-Tacoma, which airline hubs are used by the company.
According to data of an United States Census in 2010, 608,660 people lived in Seattle. The racial structure of the population of Seattle looked so. White -69.5%. The Afro-Americans -7.9%. The American Indians -0.8%. Asians -13.8%. Hawaiians -0.4%. Latin Americans -6.6%. Persons of other races -2.4%. Historically in Seattle the white population prevails. According to the same data of 2010, in the city the most large number white lived in the country, but this percent constantly falls. So, in 1960 in the city there were 91.6% white, while by 2010 there were only 69.5%, in comparison with an average indicator over the country in 73.4%. According to the Research American Community Survey conducted in 2006-2008, about 78.9% of inhabitants are more senior than 5 years of the house talk only in English.
4.5% Hispanic, 3.9% say in various Indo-European languages, and 10.2% of the population of the city talk in languages of Asia.
2.5% of the population speak other languages.
In Seattle, the permanent growth of a racial and ethnic variety is observed. The gain of number of immigrants grew by 40% between population censuses of 1990 and 2000.
The Chinese living in Seattle are natives of continental China, Hong Kong, a southeast part of Asia, and Taiwan.
At the end of 19th and at the beginning of the 20th century, Chinese arrived in the city mainly from the province of Guangdong.
About 55,000 Vietnamese of and 30,000 immigrants from Somalia also live in Seattle. Around Seattle-Tacoma, the biggest community of Cambodians in America, numbering about 19,000 people, and also one of the biggest communities of Samoans. More than 15,000 people living in a continental part of U.S.A. lives.
According to data of a population census for 2000, Seattle is in the first place among the big cities of America, where the biggest percent of the people defining themselves as people of the mixed racial origin lives.
As of 1999, the average level of income in the city was $45736, and average income on family showed value in $62195. The average income of men was $40929 against $35134 at women. Income per capita in the city was $30306.
About 11.8% of the population and 6.9% of families are below the poverty line, among which there are 13.8% of inhabitants aged up to 18 years and 10.2% at the age of 65 years and are more senior. About 800 people spend the night every day under the open sky in the district of King County, and among them the most part is in Seattle. In September 2005, King County approved the 10-year plan for overcoming a problem of homeless inhabitants, which priority is transition from financing of programs for creation of DOS houses to financing of programs for granting the permanent residence. In recent years, the population of Seattle constantly grows, therefore city authorities are faced by a problem of creation of new housing. In 2006, after consecutive increase in population on 4,000 people annually within the last 16 years, local bodies of city planning assumed that by 2040 the population of Seattle will grow by card people.
Though the former mayor Greg Nichols supported plans of increase in the population for 60%, card people, by 2040, and developed programs for granting the dwelling, in the city continued to adhere to the legislation concerning functional zoning of individual houses on one family.
Later, the City Council of Seattle voted for weakening of restrictions for high-rise construction in the most part of the central regions, partially for the purpose of increase in population density in the downtown. In 2009, increase in number of inhabitants in the downtown up to 600,000 people, that is 77% more than an indicator of 1990, is reflection of processes of increase in city agglomeration.
The number of homosexuals constantly grows in Seattle. In 2006, the research conducted by U.S.A. showed that in the city one of the highest rates of LIAT per capita, with an indicator of 12.9% of the population defining themselves as homosexuals, lesbians, bisexuals and transsexuals. Seattle takes the place, the second after San Francisco, and not much more advanced as such cities as Atlanta and Minneapolis.
The territory of Greater Seattle is the second agglomeration from shares of LIAT of the population at the level of 6.5%.
Besides, rather large number of lonely people lives in Seattle.
According to internal results of a population census in 2004, Seattle is in the fifth place among the cities about more than card inhabitants by the number of unmarried women and bachelors, with an indicator of 40.8% nationally. The main governing body in Seattle is the Municipal Council, headed by the mayor, whose activity is defined by a own document, the Charter of the City. From 1911 to 2015, 9 members of municipality were elected by all city, but not by the principle of geographical division.
Since 2015, 2 members are elected in a city format, and 7, by the principle of geographical division. The chosen positions are also the prosecutor of the city and the judge of municipal court. All other positions in city, district and state bodies are formally occupied by non-parties. As well as in the most part of the U.S.A., state bodies and laws are based on a basis of a series of selective legislative initiatives. Citizens can accept or reject laws. Referenda. Citizens can approve or reject already adopted laws. Regulations. Certain structures of the power can offer new laws or increase in taxes directly for citizens.
In the political culture of Seattle, the liberal and progressive views dominate. Also in the city there are not numerous libertarian and left-wing radical
Freedom Socialist Party movements. It is one of the most left and liberal in the American word meaning. The cities of America in which at presidential elections of 2004 about 80% of citizens supported Democratic Party, and only in 2 constituencies in Broadmoor and in Madison Park the majority gave the votes for the Republican George Bush.
And already in 2008 the candidate of Democratic Party Barack Obama won presidential elections in all districts of Seattle including on where in 2004 the candidate of Republican Party won.
On elections to legislature of the state of Washington and to the U.S. Congress, Democrats almost always won. In 2012 elections to Municipal Council of Seattle were won by the Trotskyist Kama Savant, the member of a Socialist Alternative Committee for Working International, and the activist of the movement Occupy. Seattle treats the most politically progressive cities of North America in which the most part of the population is adherents of Democratic Party and supports the liberal ideas of same-sex marriages, observance of the rights in the field of protection of reproductive health, and the laws regulating sale and use of weapons that mainly is considered as self-evident in the local politician, as well as in the bigger territory of Pacific Northwest, where the lowest level of people in the U.S.A. who visit church is observed, and the number of atheists constantly grows.
Such factors as visit of church, religious beliefs and political influences of religious leaders are expressed much more weakly than in other regions of the country.
In Seattle, the independent press, among which there are daily online editions Seattle Post-Intelligencer, Publicola and Crosscut, The Stranger, the independent weekly publication of the Left Direction, and a set of editions of a certain orientation, including the largest in the country, the Internet magazines on environmental protection, prospers. In July 2012, Seattle became the biggest city in the state of Washington where forbade use of plastic packages for purchases. At the federal level, Seattle treats the 7th polling precinct for congressional elections across the state of Washington. The representative of this site is the member of Jim McDermott Democratic Party chosen in 1988, one of the most liberal congressmen. Education. 53. 8% of the population of the city are more senior than 25 years. In comparison with an average national value of 27.4%. Have degree of the bachelor or above, and 91.9%. In comparison with 84.5% over the country. Received the school leaving certificate or its equivalent.
According to a survey conducted by Bureau of an United States Census, the most large number of graduates of colleges and universities is in Seattle.
By results of researches which are conducted by the University of the Central Connecticut among 69 main cities there are countries, in 2005 and 2006 Seattle was recognized the city with the highest percent of the educated population. In 2007 he took the second place, having conceded to Minneapolis, and in 2008 these two cities shared the first place.
The desegregation passed in public schools of Seattle without instructions of court, but educational institutions still continue to fight for equality of races in areas with the different ethnic population.
In the southern part of the city more ethnic minorities than in northern. In 2007, process of reduction of a racial gap in Seattle was cancelled by the United States Supreme Court, but forces which are at the power gave an opportunity to continue process using other types of criteria. For example, income or a social and economic class. On an equal basis with public schools, there is a small amount private, 5 of which are Catholic, 1 Lutheran and 6 bezreligiozni.
In Seattle there are a University of Washington and its educational division, which main activity is professional and additional training.
In 2006, according to the Newsweek magazine, the University of Washington took the 22nd place among the best universities of the world.
In Seattle there is also a number of the small private universities, among which Seattle University and Seattle Pacific University, both founded by religious groups.
Universities:
City Seattle University and Antiochus University, providing services to the working adults.
Public colleges: College of Northern Seattle, Central College of Seattle and College of the Southern Seattle. Number of humanitarian colleges: College of Arts Cornish, Center of Fine Arts of Pratt, and Institute of Arts of Seattle. In 2001, the Time magazine called the Central College of Seattle the best local college, claiming that, in college of various students pushed to work in one team. Healthcare and medicine:
For special merits in the field of neurology and neurosurgery and constantly conducted medical researches, the University of Washington is regularly included into 10 the main organizations of the country in the area.
From the date of Medic One Foundation in 1970 in Seattle, the local service of ambulance develops and modernized.
In 1974, the American television program of 60 Minutes noted progress of local service of ambulance and called Seattle the world's best place to test heart attack.
Three biggest medical downtowns are in the region of First Hill. The State District Hospital Harborview Medical Center is the only traumatologic organization of the first level which Washington, Alaska, Montana and Idaho serve states. Two more large medical centers, Virginia Mason Medical Center and Swedish Medical Center, also are in the same district of the city.
Because of such huge concentration of hospitals, the area received one more name, Pill Hill.
Homelekerst. The Seattle Children's Hospital, earlier known as Children's Hospital and Regional Medical Center, is in the region of Laurelhurst and Washington, Alaska, Montana and Idaho is pediatric clinic for patients from states.
Owned by Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, as the buildings located around East Lake and joint rooms with Seattle Cancer Care Alliance and University of Washington Medical Center. Around University District there is University of Washington Medical Center, which as well as Harborview belongs to the University of Washington. Around Beacon Hill the Veterans Affairs Hospital works, and in Ballard the third building of Swedish functions, and Northwest Hospital and Medical Center is near Northgate Mall.
Transport.
The first trams appeared in Seattle in 1889 and played an important role in forming a rather clear boundary of the downtown and accurate areas at the end of the transportways.
With the advent of cars, the century of railway transport came to the end. Routes of Tacoma Seattle and Everett Seattle ceased to exist in 1929 and 1939 respectively, and on their place there was a developed network of highways which was filled by the inexpensive motor transport. Railway lines were dismantled or asphalted, and after opening in 1941 of the trolleybus park, tram transport ceased to exist.
It led to the fact that a huge number of buses, in the beginning private, became the only public transport in city boundaries and on all the district, and later municipal.
The Buskin County Metro lines are laid on the city and on the district adjoining to it.
And the tram route of South Lake Union streetcar connects the region of South Lake Union and West Lake Center in the downtown.
It is convenient to use these means of transport as stops are located nearby from each other. Seattle treats a small amount of the cities in North America which bus fleet trolleybuses enter.
Now the Sound Transit Organization suggests to use services of express buses within the city. 2 lines of City Sounder electric trains connecting suburbs to the center, and the Easily Rail Central Link line, which was opened in 2009 and connects the downtown to the CTAC airport. It allowed to create in Seattle the high-speed line of transportation of passengers by public transport with intermediate stops within the city.
The Washington State Ferries Organization is the biggest in the USA and the world's 3rd company which transports on ferries. Its routes connect Seattle to the island of Bainbridge and Vashon Islands, to Puget Sound, and to Bremerton and Southworth on the peninsula of Kitsap.
According to Survey of American Community survey conducted in 2007, 18.6% of residents of Seattle use one of 3 systems of public city transport. Before the end of construction of the Sound Transit's Central Link Seattle line was among leaders in intensity of passenger city traffic among all main American cities without Uskalini and broad gauge city transport.
Bert Sperling delivered Seattle on the 4th place among the cities most comfortable for foot walks in the U.S.A. By the same criterion of walk score considers that Seattle has the 6th place among 50 big American cities.
To the south from Seattle, in the neighboring city of Sitek, there is a Seattle-Tacoma International Airport called by local CTAC Airport.
It is a part of Port of Seattle and provides regular commercial international air transportation. The Boeing Field Airport, which is closer to center of Seattle, is used for the purpose of civil aviation, for transportation of goods, and also as the test and filling site for airliners of the Boeing company.
Nevertheless, the main mode of a system of transportations is caused by location of streets of Seattle, which are planned by the principle of the disconnected rectangular street grid erected extensively light.
The only exception are streets of the central business region. The fact that some of the first founders of Seattle, Arthur Denny and Carson Boren, insisted on that their grounds were focused on the coastline, but not on a compass, is the reason of it. Only 2 high-speed highways with limited entrance, Interstate 5 and State Route 99, cross freely all city from the north on the south. Highway State Route 99 passes through the downtown on the viaduct of Alaskan Way Viaduct, which was built in 1953.
Because of destructions which reason was Nisqually earthquake in 2001, the decision till 2015 the viaduct was made to replace with a tunnel which construction will cost $4.25 billion.
By quantity of jams on roads, Seattle takes the 4th place among all American cities and the 4th place in all North America. Besides, in Seattle, the biggest growth of participants of traffic among all cities of North America in 2011-2012 is recorded. Residents gradually refuse use of cars for benefit of public transport.
From 2004 to 2009, the annual number of trips on different types of city transport grew approximately by 21%.
In 2006, the electorate of the District of King County supported Law 2. At the moment, the law on transportations which increased working hours of buses on the most loaded routes and allocated funds for creation of 5 routes of bus rapid transit called by Rapid Ride. After a rejection of the law about roads and transportations in 2007, in 2008 voters of Seattle adopted only the law on transportations, at the heart of which increase in number of street service express buses, lengthening of the link light rail line and modernization of service in use of city sounder electric trains. On December 19, 2009 there began the work the U.S.A rail line connecting the downtown to the CTAC airport.
It allowed to create in Seattle the first high-speed line of transportation of passengers by public transport with intermediate stops within the city.
As of 2010, the new branch of the line was under construction to the University of Washington. Until 2023 is going to construct branches to Linwood in the north, Des Moines in the south, and Bellevue and Redmond in the east. The mayor of Michael McGinn supported construction of the U.S.A Railroad from the center to Ballard and West Seattle. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.